following program is a peer-to-peer advice show and does not diagnose mental health conditions. If you're seeking social services, please call or text 211 or go to 211.ca. Hello, listeners around the world on radio, streaming, and podcast services. This is It's Not Therapy. I'm Liana and I am not a therapist, but I am your source for navigating the madness of mental health using my top 10 sayings for going good crazy. So we are into, well, not officially fall, but we're after Labor Day. So we're back to school and our fall routines. And so we're going to talk about friendship. And we're going to have a mix of a vent and a cautionary tale because a lot of us, from what I'm hearing, are struggling with friends that kind of suck. Or maybe we're trying to figure out what to do about realizing the bad friend is us. We're the bad friend. As usual, I'm going to take an unvarnished but still fun look at this. So right off the bat, there's no intent to attack anyone here. This is a reasonably gentle way to learn that, hey, in identifiable ways, you or someone you know sucks as a friend. And the good news is I'm also going to give you ways to do better. The 7 types of bad friend we're going to deal with today are the judge, the glass cannon, the quiet quitter, the groundhog, the drama llama, the scorekeeper, and drumroll, the narcissist. Feeling a little scared, a little anxious. That's okay. I'm giving lead up, foreshadowing, because if you recognize yourself in one of these categories, it doesn't automatically mean you're a bad person. It just means you have work to do being a friend. And we can all be a better friend in some way. This isn't a judgment. Epic segue, because the first type of bad friend I want to talk about is the judge. We all have that friend who is constantly judging, and it's usually negative. They judge our choice of other friends, our choice of dates, our choice of clothes, what we eat, what we watch, the pictures of our friends we post online, and did we ask for their opinion? No. A judge is not a bad person. Otherwise, they wouldn't be our friend, right? Right? Okay, maybe that's an assumption. But I prefer to assume that a judge is just raised in an environment where those sorts of judgments are seen as normal, and they've blocked out how hurtful and demotivating they can be because they've been subjected to them themselves their entire life. The problem with being a judge is that your friends will keep things from you that they don't want judged. If you tend to be the last person to find out that someone has a new significant other or other major news, it might be that your friends aren't telling you things because they are not interested in your opinion on it. And they're pretty certain that you will knee-jerk provide your opinion on it. When people feel the need to be on guard around you, that hurts the friendship. How can you tell if you're a judge? Well, how do you feel when someone says, I'm just looking for support on this. I'm not looking for an opinion, please. Does that comment upset you, make you feel anxious, make you feel censored? Then, honey, you're probably a judge. Unsolicited advice isn't helpful. It's pushy. Precisely because it's unsolicited. Helpful advice is advice people actually want. So if you're worried about being a judge, here's one weird trick to solve that problem. Ask, are you looking for advice or do you just want support right now? This is to your friend. And actually listen to the answer. Top 10 phrase, listen twice before you talk once. Top 10 phrase, be the hero of your own story and not anyone else's. But here come the buts. And that's why you end up looking like a butt face to your friends. Yes, it's great to want to save your friends from themselves, but no, it's not. Think about the low opinion that communicates of your friend's decision making. If you think they can't do it without your help, if you think you have to save them, you're making it pretty clear that you think they're incompetent. Oh, but you don't. You just think your way is better. And it might be better for you. It might not be better for your friend. Okay, your friend might legit be a screw up. More on those types of bad friends later. But your friend's problems are not yours. Top 10 phrase, don't let problems that aren't your fault lead to mistakes that are. Now, if you have a friend who's a judger, setting boundaries is going to be make or break for the friendship. For instance, I appreciate that you care, but I'm hurt by some of the judgments you make about me. Now, this may cause the judger to get upset or offended because a lot of judges are very thin-skinned. But top 10 phrase, other people don't have to like your boundaries. They do have to respect them. A friend who doesn't respect your boundaries just isn't a good friend. And okay, you may have a bestie where you fling judgments at each other and it works, but it has to be a two-way street. If you can dish it out but can't take it, well, you're another form of bad friend. And that bad friend is called the glass cannon. Now, a glass cannon is a term I borrowed from gaming. You know, I love my video games. It describes a character with high offensive power, but low defensive capabilities. So big blast, but any counter shatters like glass, hence glass cannon, right? If you're this type of bad friend, you can dish it out, but you can't take it. This kind of bad friend tends to become an ex-friend with me because they explode the minute, you set a boundary with them, or when they feel judged, criticized, or heaven forbid, you're not interested in their lengthy explanations of why it's absolutely not their fault again because you set a boundary with them. Glass cannons, I don't believe, start off this way. This is a slow creep that preys on your good nature and your lack of boundaries, taking more and more liberties as the glass cannon discovers, perhaps instinctively, perhaps habitually, how much they can push. We are not assuming deliberate intent on this one, right? This is people who it's learned behavior. More on the people who do it deliberately later, okay? You don't have to assume deliberate intent. It's often because of profoundly low self-esteem and a core belief that everyone will eventually leave them. What a glass cannon doesn't understand is that they're the ones that actually repel people. They shove people away more than it is actually a classic case of people abandoning them. Here's an example from my own life. Someone I defended against accusations of wrongdoing. We'll leave out the details here, but that person they were a judge. And people read in stuff that at the time, I didn't see any evidence of myself. The judging, yes. The other things, no, not so much. But eventually it did hit a point where this person was starting to cross the line. I could observe them doing exactly what people were accusing them of. And I privately told them just that, to be a good friend of, hey, this thing, better watch it. They accused me of threatening them. I assume they jumped to the conclusion that I was going to announce to the world that other people had been right all along because there'd been a string of those things. But no, I had no intention of doing that. I just wanted them to back off being judgy so I could continue to defend them. I told them that if they didn't retract the accusation that I'd threatened them, the ensuing conversation probably wouldn't be productive. I never heard from them again. And that is textbook glass cannon behavior. Blow up, accusing of threats, shatter when somebody goes, They can dish out the rough talk, judgments, and other irritating or hurtful behavior. They have zero tolerance for being on the receiving end of any of it. Okay, fairness. A lot of glass cannons have personality disorders that are not narcissistic personality disorder. And their glass cannon quality is a symptom or multiple symptoms of that condition. And that's why these conditions are marked by a series of unstable and turbulent relationships. But there are plenty of other people without those diagnoses who still blow up as a defense mechanism, like a skunk spraying. And eventually, people get tired of cleaning up the stink. Again, this behavior starts in families. And, I'm trying to watch time, so let's skip that and get to the improvement, because I want to leave time for other things. If you're a glass cannon who wants to improve, Emotional regulation techniques, like those found in dialectical behavior therapy, are a must. You don't have to, get closure or move past all of the stuff that happened to you in childhood. Your feelings are valid. Your hurt, your fear, your anger, they're valid. They're just not an excuse to do or say anything you want. And just because you don't understand why other people don't want to deal with your tantrums and meltdowns, because they are tantrums and meltdowns, doesn't mean that these other people's feelings aren't valid too. By continuing to subject other people to your explosions and your shatterings, the glass cannon cycle, what you're doing is communicating that when it really comes down to it, their feelings are not important enough for you to not fall apart when you have to deal with them. And that, combined with the cannonballs that they're constantly ducking, anyone with an ounce of self-esteem will walk away from that cycle. Now, if you're dealing with a glass cannon, remember that it's ultimately your choice whether you want to stay in contact with the person in question. Now, some of them can be bosses, and that is a tricky thing, bosses, teachers. But either way, if they continue to bust your boundaries, you have the right to end contact. Now, document the blow-ups, right? I've found that merely setting and enforcing boundaries is enough to make a glass cannon shatter. And you got to be careful, because then you get the tale of woe rather convincingly told to third parties about how abusive you were, not the glass cannon. That's what I'm saying. Document it. Document how you set boundaries. Record the conversations on your end. Make sure, if you're listening in the US or other countries, make sure you're a single party consent state, or it may not be legal. So watch that. Here in Ontario, it's fine. No matter what, let the glass cannon all over the place and tell their tale of woe. Don't step on the broken glass. Those people, they're exploding all over. They will soon find out that the glass cannon is a glass cannon. And what they heard shattered them wasn't actually what you said. No. Glass cannons take what you say, mix it with a profound insecurity that something you said led to them feeling. And glass cannons have so many deep insecurities that it's impossible to predict which one you're going to hit. They're not bad people per se, but they might not be good for you. Okay, let's take a break and come back with 2 more types of bad friends. That was kind of heavy. All right, digging deep. 2 more types of bad friends after the break. The quiet quitter and the groundhog. Now, do you have a story you think would be good for the show? Do you have a topic you think would be good for the show? Are you interested in sponsoring the show? I love you sponsors. Liana at nottherapyshow.com. Nottherapyshow.com is the website. At nottherapyshow on social media. Types of bad friends. 7 types of bad friends. Do you know one? Are you one on It's Not Therapy? The following program is a peer-to-peer advice show and does not diagnose mental health conditions. If you're seeking social services, please call or text 211 or go to 211.ca. We're back and It's Not Therapy. I'm still Liana Kersner. I'm still not a therapist. We are still talking about 7 types of bad friends. Before the break, we talked about 2 types of bad friends, the judge and the glass cannon. These 2 types have some degree of active aggression, but it covers up deep insecurities with a best defense is a strong offense approach. The next 2 type of bad friends are outwardly the opposite. They're passive or passive aggressive, still with deep insecurities. The thing about these more passive bad friends is it's very hard to tell whether the problem is one of communication, which is something that can be fixed, or something in the other person, which is not within your power to fix. So let's start with the quiet quitter. The term quiet quitting comes from workplace discussions, and it refers to the practice of doing the minimum work required by somebody's job description, and that person deprioritizes their sense of identity and fulfillment that people who like their jobs get from work. There's a related, newer term called quiet cracking, which is, according to cloud learning platform Talent LMS, quiet cracking is a persistent feeling of workplace unhappiness that leads to disengagement, poor performance, and an increased desire to quit. So, at some point, a friendship cracks. It could be no one's fault, but one friend quiet cracks and then quiet quits the friendship, deciding that gradually disengaging is better than risking a conflict. And this seems like the nice thing to do. I assure you it's not. One of the most common forms of trauma I see in clients who have pretty severe life-altering trust issues is a history with friends, romantic partners, and or even family members who quiet quit on them. The ultimate form of this is, of course, ghosting. It seems like a pattern to them where the problem is them, because it seems like everyone quiet quits on them. But that could be just because it's extremely common. And confession time, I have to watch my own quiet quitting tendencies. Not only am I profoundly introverted, I came from that system where all of your peers were your competitors. Yeah, and I'm bad at reaching out to people just to say, hey, how you doing? Now, in part, it's because I deal with a lot of overwhelm, introvert problem, but also busy person problem, also PTSD problem. When I get overwhelmed, my instinct and my practice is to shut down. In part, so I'm not a glass cannon. In part, so I don't burden people with my struggles. It's a constant balancing act that sometimes I don't get right. But a couple months ago, a longtime friend of mine messaged me asking me if I was okay, because she hadn't heard from me. And yeah, I wasn't okay, but I wanted the friendship to be. So I'm, from that point forward, I made a point of communicating more. And even though I'm afraid I sound stupid, desperate, and annoying, well, she's a friend worth taking that risk for, right? No matter how much I'm uncomfortable talking when I'm not totally, centered, I'm not going to accidentally punish a friend who didn't quit on me when I quiet cracked from being around too many judges and glass cannons. Those more aggressive form of bad friend can be really, really draining, especially to people with a lot of empathy. Now, did I intend it as punishment? No, of course not. Did it have that impact anyway? Possibly. I don't know. I didn't ask her. I was just like, all right, I'm not communicating enough. I'm gonna do better. And so I just send her ridiculous stuff sometimes just to stay in touch. And hey, yeah, it might be annoying, but at least it's responsive. We all have limited time, energy, and focus, but beyond that, this is an area I know I have to watch. I know it's directly rooted in trauma. My entire life, my go-to assumption is that I'm annoying someone because my parents treated me like an annoyance. I really felt like my parents would have been happier if I didn't exist. Some days I still feel like my parents would have been happier if I didn't exist, right? But that's a reason, not an excuse. I've worked to come up with ways to first prioritize my friendships so I'm not all over the place. And, also work to not throw energy at people who aren't reciprocating. So I have more energy to reciprocate myself. Even when, dun, 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 I might be annoyed at someone at the moment and I'm trying to get past it. And this is part of my work. This is how I get over the sense of, I'm annoying someone, don't talk to them, right? Being annoyed isn't the same as being hurt. And it's pretty foolish to throw away a friendship by freezing someone out because I'm irritated. That's passive aggressive. And if I think the person didn't mean to do it, I'll either, I'll usually say something when it's small in a non-confrontational way, and they know, and the problem's solved. But if it's just because I'm feeling anxious and I'm not communicating it and they don't know, well, that's my problem and my responsibility. It's not theirs. Now, I might have made that sound easy, but that standard of behavior for everyone took a lot of work. So there's hope for you, insecure quiet quitters. And for those of you who have been quiet quit on, you have the right to feel whatever you want about it. You can't force a quiet quitter to unquit, but it's okay to feel disappointed and hurt. It can mean a lot if you do what my friend did and simply ask, are you okay? But it's, also okay if you just get fed up of being frozen out or getting vague answers or getting, it's not you, it's me, or just getting no response and somebody pops up, a few weeks later with some superficial nonsense. You deserve better than someone whose behavior or lack thereof leaves you feeling unappreciated and neglected. A related type of bad friend, in that many of these bad habits are also anxiety driven, to the quiet quitter, right? The quiet quitter, we're now moving on to the groundhog. This is one of my favorite names, right? The groundhog is that unreliable friend who may or may not see their shadow before every social event or get together, so they may or may not disappear back into their hole and chronically cancel last minute, or if they're really conflict averse, just no show. Yes, they can't help it. Yes, they have an anxiety condition. Sure, they've got bad depression. But if they're causing trouble with their last minute cancellations, you have the right to stop inviting them to things, and their FOMO is their problem. If you can leave your door open to them, that is wonderful. We're going to get into the caveats there, right? That's a nice thing, not a required thing. You should want to leave your door open, not feel obligated. Again, crippling anxiety or depression is a reason, not an excuse. There are treatments for these conditions, and there comes a point where the strain that chronic mental health issues put on people around the groundhog is too great. And I'm not talking about people with chronic physical illnesses who can't help it. Often people with physical challenges will be honest and tell you that it's going to come down to how they're feeling that day. That's a person, responsibly living with a chronic illness or disability. I'm one. That is not what we're talking about here, right? Now, not all groundhogs are the anxiety and depression overtly one. Like, not all groundhogs necessarily obviously run back into a hole. There's another type of groundhog who chronically overcommits. That groundhog is everywhere. Realizes they've committed to like 3 different things. They'll say they'll come, not thinking, like, hey, can you come over Thursday? Yeah, sure. And then somebody asks them, hey, can you come over Thursday? Yeah, sure. And then the third one, they'll realize they triple booked themselves and either pick an event, not tell the other 2 people, and you find out they attended through social media, or they feel so bad that they overbooked again that they crawl back in their hole and don't go to anything, and then whine about their anxiety on social media instead of doing the grown-up thing and letting people know what happened and how they're working on it. Either way, the problem with the groundhog is you have no idea if they will see their shadow. If they say they'll attend, you don't know it will actually translate into them attending. And the groundhog type of bad friend is so common that I've seen news articles about it. Groundhog friends are, they're varmints, they're vermin. No, I shouldn't call people vermin, right? It was a joke. I don't see much information about how to handle this type of chronic bad friend, though. Now, I'd prefer to take a multi-step approach because, again, don't assume ill intent, right? Don't assume they mean to. Give them multiple warnings before the groundhog is cut off from events, right? First, talk to them in as even a tone as possible. Not about, oh, you're always doing this. No, pick a specific event and let them see the consequences of their groundhogging. Like, yes, have empathy. You understand that they have anxiety. The reality is that steaks are expensive and the one you bought for them at that barbecue went to waste, right? There was too much food for people to eat. Or, this is a really common one. Restaurants get upset when you book a table for 10 and only 5 people show up. And yes, that is how common groundhogging is. 50% of friend groups sometimes don't show up. And this is because we've trained people to believe that feeling anxious about being social is a sign you should hide away, instead of recognizing that this is bad happy math and an indication that a shift in thinking is due. Now, what's that shift? Well, it can be anything from, say, all right, I get anxious every time I have to go out. Now, why is that? For me, it's getting there because traffic in Toronto is scary. Whenever I have to go downtown, I get anxiety. It's not the people, it's downtown, right? But other times people are like, what if I say something stupid? What if people don't want to see me? The what if, the what if, the what if? And these are your friends. Why do you think your friends are going to be mean to you? That's something to confront, right? The thing about it, because we're dealing with anxiety, that's why I'm suggesting, just be gentle at first with the groundhog, because groundhogs can become glass cannons if you confront them with frustration. And you have every right to be frustrated at their chronic no-shows. Just, they're so anxiety-ridden that they might not be able to handle it. After you've gently let them know, look, the restaurant isn't going to make bookings for us anymore because we book for 10 and only have 5. And that's a lot of seats that they can't book for, right? If after these, really making them aware of the issues it's causing for you, if they continue to groundhog, set a clear boundary. If they do it again, you're going to stop inviting them to things. Make it clear what a reasonable cancellation window is. And it's anything you feel comfortable, right? A week in advance, a couple days, a couple days you can change your restaurant reservation, right? Even a text to let they're not coming instead of just making you guess, right? What will you need to not feel frustrated? And this isn't just hangouts. I've heard people who groundhogged on prepaid movie tickets, escape rooms, concert tickets, banquets, even weddings, last minute sticking their friends with the cost. Yes, someone was no-show at a wedding. For God's sake, if you can't make the event, first of all, God, no showing a wedding. Unless you were in a car accident or something like that, that's bad friend territory, right? But don't leave your friend holding the bag with the concert ticket, the cost of the meal that you didn't attend, right? The escape room fee. Pay your share of the fee and don't make your friend chase you for it. Offer to pay for what it cost, even though you weren't there. And if you're a chronic double, triple, quadruple booker, get better at using your calendar. Look at it before you commit. Trust me, it is not nice to say you'll attend and then not be able to do it. It makes you unreliable, not nice. Now, if the issue is anxiety, this show is called It's Not Therapy, but get therapy, right? Anxiety is a treatable condition. Even if you don't want medication, there are behavioral adaptations. There are cognitive tricks to lower it. Now, of course, chronic groundhoggers also groundhog their therapists, because in many ways I've found groundhogging is either some sort of shutdown or some form of self-punishment that makes anxiety and depression worse. So you just don't owe it to your friends to address your groundhogging. You owe it to yourself. And this includes if it's rooted in, some form of ADHD that makes you lose track of time. There are solutions. If you keep falling asleep, better self-care. There are ways. Get yourself out of the cycle of being afraid of your own shadow. See why it's called groundhogging? There you go. Okay, second break time. When we come back, 2 more types of bad friends. We're continuing the animal theme with the drama llama and the scorekeeper. Questions, comments, concerns. My email is liana@nottherapyshow.com. The website is nottherapyshow.com. The social media tag is @nottherapyshow. Bad friends. This is event session when we come back on It's Not Therapy. The following program is a peer-to-peer advice show and does not diagnose mental health conditions. If you're seeking social services, please call or text 211 or go to 211.ca. We're back in It's Not Therapy. I'm still Liana Kersner. I'm still not a therapist. We are still talking about 7 types of bad friends, and we've been through 4. They are the judge, the glass cannon, the quiet quitter, and the groundhog. If you're tuning in on the radio, you can hear the rest of this podcast anywhere you get your podcast. Look up It's Not Therapy with Liana Kersner, because you're not going to want to miss this. So, you've already missed it. Right. We're coming to 2 types of bad friends who make things all about them in unique and special ways. And we're not at the narcissist yet. No, we are at the drama llama and the scorekeeper. And I realized I did the groundhog and the drama llama. Apologies for all these animal metaphors. I know Eurofurence just happened. Shout out to Eurofurence. What's Eurofurence? If you don't know, don't worry about it. The drama llama is a type of bad friend who is overly dramatic or exaggerates problems, and these exaggerations lead to unnecessary conflict. And I put that last part in because I don't want to give judges a permission structure to go, oh, you're just being a drama llama, right? Like, no. This isn't merely having the occasional bad day or going through a rough patch. It's all about me syndrome filtered through the lens of someone who has learned to control people by having no control of themselves. And like I said, overreacting is a judgment. Too dramatic is a judgment, and it's important to not be the judge bad friend type. But if you've got a friend who's talking about killing themselves every other week, or every month, but refuses any sort of professional intervention, you are dealing with a drama llama. If someone says they're suicidal and they won't call the appropriate crisis lines, they are free. They are 24/7 open. And at least in the US and Canada, they are national. That says a lot. Does someone in your life seem unable to have a hurt feeling without accusing someone of abuse? They might be a drama llama. Does someone constantly fight with people on social media and even read responses to those fights while you're supposed to be hanging out, huffing and angrily thumb typing on their phone? They might be a drama llama. Is your friend an internet troll? Huge drama llama. Drama llamas aren't just sometimes not okay. They're not people like me who just, get way into that Drake and Kendrick Lamar beef from a while back, right? Drama llamas are not just sometimes okay. Drama llamas are never okay. Because if they're never okay, you're not allowed to call them on their bad behavior. Again, feelings are always valid. Behaviors sometimes aren't. Here's an example of choice drama llama behavior. Okay, case study. A woman invites 2 men to a performance. She's an entertainer, right? She wants her friends to come. Now, these two guys don't like each other because the drama llama performer told each of the men that the other man was abusive to her. When one or both men says they can't be there if the other guy is, or if worse, the drama llama just didn't tell them they were both going to be there, and there's an issue. The drama llama weeps and whines about how she doesn't understand why they can't just get along for one night to support her. She's just looking for support for her art. And yes, someone can be both a drama llama and a groundhog or a judge. People can be multiple types of terrible friend. In fact, drama llamas often turn into those hypercritical judges the minute anyone else has a problem that requires anyone else's attention. Drama llamas tend to tell other people, oh, you're so sensitive, you're such a hot mess, right? Because, well, it's all about them, right? Drama llamas also often love bomb in the short term, but can't sustain that level of effort. They're not narcissists per se because they do have empathy for other people. In fact, they can get a lot of empathy overload, which is why they're drama llamas. But that's because they're also extremely insecure, immature, and unrealistic in their expectations of relationships. They want it to be like a romantasy book or some movie, not life. And that unrealistic expectation is why a drama llama can come across as extremely entitled. Now, they'll never see that, though. They'll see all the ways they have it bad and other people have it so good, and that's called an upward social comparison, and that's bad happy math. You got to run your race, right? And again, this is usually learned behavior, because the other way is they're so good and giving and everyone else is so mean. Whether the drama llama in your life is more like Glinda from Wicked, the popular girl superficiality that creates problems so she can seem nice by dealing with them, or the drama llama that you're dealing with is someone who seems addicted to conflict, like, well, pick your politician or YouTube influencer these days. Drama llamas may be funny to watch from afar, but they are not fun to be friends with because they pull you into their drama. Right? I mean, it was the Kendrick and Drake beef. It was like, okay, this is pretty cool. Yeah, line crossed, right? You do not want to be at ground zero when those lines get crossed. And that's why a drama llama isn't just theatrical. It crosses over into a bad friend. Again, the drama llama is not just about someone who has big emotions and big reactions. It's about someone who causes unnecessary conflict on a regular basis. Now, they can also be a type of bad friend I call a scorekeeper. Again, somebody can be more than one kind of bad friend. A scorekeeper is like a drama llama turned inside out, and people can flip back and forth, right? A scorekeeper is an extremely transactional type of friend who, as the name suggests, is always keeping score. Now, while fairness matters, and you shouldn't walk around feeling taken advantage of, people can't always respond in kind, especially when money is an issue. If one friend has the ability to buy expensive gifts and the other person is paying off student debt, scorekeeping that, oh, I got them that really expensive thing and they got me a card. Well, if that's all the person can afford, and hey, maybe they handmade the card, why are you keeping score, right? Another thing that scorekeepers keep score of is mistakes. People make mistakes. Working through the mistake at the time, that's great. You don't have to force forgive. But holding grudges and reminding people of their past transgressions, well, this is the scorekeeper's stock and trade. And it's not the same as legitimately trying to get over some past hurt and being stuck, especially if a betrayal or breach of trust is involved. No, we all have that sometimes. A scorekeeper keeps this running tally of grievances. I'm amazed at their memories, right? Because often the first you'll hear of one of these problems they've allegedly had for months is when you bring something up you'd like them to work on and they whip it up as a counter move, right? We've all met somebody like this, because if you're both at fault, see, the scorekeeper, they don't have to do the work on themselves. Every time they're called on bad behavior, they'll just throw something in your face from weeks or months ago. Of course, they didn't bring it up at the time, but, they were so hurt. Of course, when you're not expecting this to come up, most people don't remember things clearly from that far back, right? More memory in a bit. While you are going, what? The scorekeeper will be adamant that they remember exactly what happened because they were so hurt by it, even though they didn't say anything at the time. Take their word for it. No, don't take their word for it. That's a convenience. It's a convenient story that a few moments reflection indicates is highly unlikely. Human memory is a combination of the facts of what happened and the story we told ourselves about what happened. And so what's coming out of them, since they've been stewing on it for a while, is probably not word for word or act for act. More to the point, they didn't say anything at the time, so it's not fair to bring up just to even some current dispute score. You see how it's different than just, I'm still upset about that? Oh, of course you'll hear that they have reasons that they couldn't bring it up back then, which will, of course, be somehow your fault. And that's also nonsense. It's another bad habit that doesn't hold up to scrutiny. Adults have a responsibility to bring up issues they have in a timely manner. If you're dealing with a scorekeeper, set boundaries. Refuse to be drawn into their tit for tat. Okay? Then duck as they go glass cannon. You see how next move, glass cannon, right? Yeah, that's why I did the glass cannon and the judger first. Because assumptions and emotional dysregulation are at the core of a lot of bad friend moves. And, judging by the time, you know what it means. One more break, then we'll talk about everyone's favorite subject, that friend some people have who is just a straight up narcissist. Questions, comments, any feedback, Liana at nottherapyshow.com is my email. Nottherapyshow.com is the website. At nottherapyshow is my social media. Bad friends, narcissism, suspense. Coming up on It's Not Therapy. The following program is a peer-to-peer advice show and does not diagnose mental health conditions. If you're seeking social services, please call or text 211 or go to 211.ca. We're back in It's Not Therapy. I'm still Liana Kersner. I'm still not a therapist. We are still talking the 7 types of bad friends. And we are at number 7. We have talked about the judge, the glass cannon, the quiet quitter, the groundhog, the drama llama, the scorekeeper. And you might be thinking, I know people who are all or most of those things. And you, my proverbial friend that I have never met, might be dealing with mental health TikTok's favorite topic. A legit card-carrying narcissist. Someone with a disregard for others' feelings, an overblown sense of importance, and an unhealthy need for admiration. Basically, real talk. There's someone who is a friend just because you're scared of what they'll do if you stop being friends, or they're so cruel that they convince you it's your fault that they're hurting you, a lot of the time. Yeah, if someone's hurting you a lot of the time and they somehow make it your fault, I mean, in a perfect world, this would be obvious, but in this world, it needs to be said. This is not a friend. This is an abuser. narcissists who aren't treated aren't really capable of being friends because they lack the requisite real concern for other people. Now, you may need help getting out of this unhealthy relationship as much as the internet, in popular culture, likes to throw around the word narcissist. Dealing with a narcissist, it really isn't bad friend territory. You could be in bad person territory, right? Again, you may need help, possibly professional help, getting out of this unhealthy relationship. Please use whatever services you can. Now, available services don't help the internal, oh, they're sorry and they're going to change, right? You don't want to give up on people. You don't want to quiet quit, right? You don't want to judge. But keep track of how many times you said, oh, they're sorry and they're going to change to yourself. Change is possible. Real talk, narcissistic personality disorder can respond to treatment. It can. If the narcissist actually follows the treatment. And in order to do that, they have to admit they have a problem. And if they have a problem, well, then they're not that special, super important person and better than other people. So no, they can't be them. You must be the problem. And that cycle is the crux of narcissism and why it is so difficult to treat. A narcissist will go ultimate glass cannon when all the other types of bad friend don't work. Because a narcissist can't tolerate for a second that they might have to humble. Because in their minds, that would make them not special. Now that's a false dichotomy, but right. You can't save someone like that. They don't want to be saved. They'll just drag you down with them. That's called narcissistic supply for a reason. And that's why it's like, okay, the other people can't help it. The other people can't help it. The other people can't help it, right? If you get the sense that someone is doing any of these bad friend behaviors deliberately, they're not really a friend. Questions, comments, concerns, any feedback, let me know. If you want a follow-up on this show on any of the points I've brought up. Every single one of these could be a show in himself, I realize. Liana at nottherapyshow.com is my email. Nottherapyshow.com is the website with the contact form. At Not Therapy Show on social media. You know what's coming, right? Okay, so let's everybody take a breath, because this was an intense one, right? If you're feeling, oh my God, what if I'm a bad friend? Don't quiet quit, right? Like, just communicate, be the best friend you can be. Ask your friend, is there anything you could be doing better to be a better friend? Please be gentle, right? Because there's no point in driving yourself crazy about this. That's bad crazy. We go good crazy, and your crazy is only a problem if it's hurting you. See you next time.